It's great to welcome to the program today P.E. Moskowitz, the author of The Case Against Free Speech, The First Amendment, Fascism, and the Future of Dissent. Also author of How to Kill a City, Gentrification, Inequality, and the Fight for the Neighborhood. So great to have you on today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So to start with, I think most of us have some concept of the idea of free speech, even if it's not directly from the law of the Constitution, the First Amendment, or what is existing in precedent and court decisions. Where do you think that our general concept of free speech comes from at this point in time? Is it more social and cultural rather than a legal framework?
I think that we have a kind of very convoluted understanding of what free speech actually means and what the First Amendment actually means. It's kind of drilled into us very early. We learn about the First Amendment, obviously, in school from a very early age. But the kind of rhetoric of free speech and this culture of freedom of expression is used again and again by, you see it on TV, you see it politicians saying, "Oh, this is what makes America the greatest country on earth," and you just hear these kind of platitudes over and over again all the time. I mean, and once you start noticing how much you hear it, then you'll realize it's happening all the time. But I think there's a difference between hearing this kind of platitude about we have freedom of speech every single day of your life versus actually learning what it means or whether we actually have it.
Is there a particular distortion or incorrect understanding about what we mean when we say free speech that is affecting the political discourse right now that you can identify?
I think there are a couple of them. The first would be that people think freedom of speech applies to kind of everything they want it to, and in the framers of the Constitution and the amendments minds, it just applied to the government being able to stop your speech or not being able to stop your speech. So, people will always, you see this on college campuses, for example, someone will get disinvited from a college and people will say, "Oh, that's a violation of freedom of speech." No, it's not, because the government was not involved in any way. You weren't being arrested for speaking or anything like that. And that you see it all the time. If someone gets banned from Twitter, people will claim that's a violation of freedom of speech. Twitter is a private company; it can do whatever it wants. um, the other misconception I think people have is that we have universal free speech in this country, which we just simply don't. I mean, I can't wander into your house and say whatever I want. In some states, you could shoot me if I do that. If we're in a stand your ground state, I can't vote.
Although I guess arguably to steelman that argument, it wouldn't be necessarily the saying of something in someone's house, but the fact that you entered uninvited, I guess that would, open the door to a self-defense shooting, right?
Sure, yeah. But that kind of proves that we value some things over freedom of speech, i.e., private property and privacy. And same thing. If I go into a Walmart, they can kick me out for protesting on their store grounds because we value the idea of private property over the idea of freedom of speech. So when we talk about freedom of speech, what we're talking about is speech that isn't impinged by the government, is on public property or your own private property, doesn't violate copyright laws, doesn't threaten anyone, and even in once you tick all those boxes, you can still be arrested for protesting. You can still be, denied a permit to protest by the government. The idea that we have universal freedom of speech, once you start looking into it, just it kind of it strikes me as ridiculous that we even have universal freedom of speech.
It's also sort of become a proxy to other political battles in a sense. I mean, a lot of the questions around the right to refuse baking a cake for someone on the basis of what kind of an event the cake will be used at, the idea of being able to wear political clothing while working at a particular corporation, for example. A lot of these, I guess let me ask it to you. Are a lot of these really issues of speech, or are they issues of something else where free speech is being used as a proxy to try to make a political statement?
I think that freedom of speech can end up kind of mucking up what's actually happening a lot of the times. And yeah, you see this with, Nazis marching on the streets of the United States, for example, and liberals saying, well, we have to defend their right to march because of freedom of speech, because of the First Amendment. And there are a couple of things I would say to refute that. One, every other Western democracy doesn't have a First Amendment and gets along fine in terms of freedom of expression. They recognize that there's no universalist kind of platitude that they need to use in order to guarantee democracy. They recognize that some things like hate speech based on race or gender and those kinds of things might end up doing more harm than good if spoken without being challenged. And I don't think anyone would consider Canada, for example, any more of a failing democracy than the United States is, and they do that without the First Amendment. And the other thing is, yeah, I mean, I think we can use freedom of speech to elide these much stickier issues. If we say, well, I defend Nazis' right to march because of freedom of speech, we end up not asking, why are there Nazis marching on our streets? We end up not asking, why are people denying baking cakes for gay people? It's a way to kind of live and let live with these really terrible issues that we shouldn't live and let live. We should be asking, why are there Nazis on our streets? We should be asking, why is there discrimination against gay people? And instead we just say, well, they can say whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, I think that so there's a couple things that are mixed in here. One is obviously the idea that the fact that someone may not necessarily deserve being proactively stopped from speaking doesn't mean we need to go, number one, out of our way to make sure that there are no consequences to their speech. Free
Right,
speech, when it exists, also does not entail freedom of consequences to that speech.
right.
But to make a more practical, I mean, so okay, with the straight pride parade that we had in Boston a couple months ago, I talked about this because we shoot out of Boston. I said that without even getting into should the permit or have been granted or not, because you can sort of take different positions on that. To me, the ideal thing would have been that just no one pays attention, that the 60 marchers or whatever show up and they do their thing, but it doesn't, like no one cares and it's just kind of a waste of their time. I thought might be a way where we don't even have to have the argument about free speech, but that's not everybody's approach. I mean, how do you think those types of events should be handled?
I think that there are a couple ways you can look at that. I agree that maybe no one should pay attention, but in that case, I think that also, the government shouldn't pay attention to them either, i.e., dedicate many resources like cops and, barricades and all of this. I mean, I've been to, as a reporter and as an activist, I've been to many far right marches where it's five, neo-Nazis or whatever it may be, and then
Yeah.
100 cops surrounding them. And if you listen to like people on the far left who want to punch those Nazis in the face or whatever, they're not saying don't let the Nazis march. They're not saying the government should arrest them or something. They're just saying, why is the government spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars protecting them when, if I go out on the street and say some ridiculous stuff, I don't have police protection guaranteed. And so, yeah, with the straight pride people, I think there would be a lot less people marching in the streets, spouting white supremacists or anti-trans or whatever slogans if they didn't know that 1,000 cops would be there protecting them.
That's true. And I mean, so this is where it's sort of like a chicken egg thing because I agree 110% with what you're saying. And yet, if it wasn't known that there would be more protesters than marchers or whatever, there probably would not be resources mobilized. And that's not a defense of anything, by the way, just to be clear. It sort of becomes this self-perpetuating thing where if no one paid attention, you probably wouldn't really need resources because there'd be 40 people walking down the street and then going, to Chick-fil-A and getting chicken sandwiches and going home or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree and disagree. I think, for one, the internet in general has made us all closer in this bad way,
Yeah.
where we think we need to respond to everything. Like Nazis were still organizing before Twitter existed, but now I just see them organizing all the time, right? So I think that's given us this sense of immediacy that's not really healthy. Like, oh, we need to be there. We need to be counteracting this at every single moment. That being said, you don't want, Nazis to go unchecked on your streets. I think if you allow 20 Nazis to march, then there's nothing to say that in, 6 months, 100 Nazis won't be marching on your streets, and so on and so on. I think there's an argument to be made that the less you protest these things, even if it is just five people, protesting some ridiculous cause, the less you protest them, the more you kind of allow people to think they're socially acceptable, and allow that to grow unchecked. So yes, I understand not responding to every single one of these ridiculous protests, and kind of fanning the flames. But at the same time, I think that sometimes it is important to show that this is not a socially acceptable thing to do.
Yeah, it's sort of a, I mean, it's the same decision I make when I decide, is this particular extremist, am I better off ignoring them, or are their ideas becoming mainstream enough that it's actually worth responsibly challenging them? And there's no sort of like guide necessarily. Sometimes it's a judgment call.
Right. There is no hard and fast rule, and I think that's really important to recognize. A lot of the book, and I should say this isn't just like a think piece of a book, like this is a reported book. I go to Charlottesville, I go to Washington, D.C., I go to Standing Rock, I go to like five different college campuses to interview people about, blocking conservative speakers there. And when I was on those college campuses, I think, these students get this totally unfair representation of, oh, they just want to cancel all speech that they hate. But they're thinking about this tactically too. There, when it comes to Charles Murray, the guy who invented the bell curve and is kind of like a modern day race scientist, they thought that he specifically was worth protesting because he was taking these far right racist concepts and pushing them.
Oh man, a very important conversation with P.E. Moskowitz that is, someone doesn't want it to happen because we are having significant connection issues with P.E. That may be as far as we can get with it. So I will remind you that we've been speaking with P.E. Moskowitz, author of The Case Against Free Speech, the First Amendment, Fascism, and the Future of Dissent. We will do what we can to try to get PE back, but certainly something going on with our connection today causing a major, major issue, for which I can only apologize. We will take a quick break and be back with much more right after this.